AEW Dynamite starts off red hot with a Real Ospreay promo. He ends up attacking MJF, mentioning MJF. MJF had a promo on Collision. He had sent some shots at Will Ospreay on Collision, so Will Ospreay, of course, is going to respond back. He calls MJF insecure. He ends up mentioning the attack on Daniel Garcia. And then he ends up mentioning that MJF doesn't like him and mentions the reasons why MJF may not like him. He ends up saying that Tony Khan was more willing to spend more money on him than MJF. He ends up mentioning that how he has more talent than MJF could ever have. And he ends up saying that he was the one that reminded AEW fans what the true identity of AEW. Then he starts talking that trash, ends up saying that he wants MJF to come out for a fight. MJF theme music starts to hit. It's playing, but he ain't coming out. Then he pops up on the Titantron. Of course, MJF being the heel he ends up saying that, of course, I'm not going to come out to fight. Y'all not worthy of my attention, so I'm not going to come out. But he ends up saying that, look, he has beaten everyone at the top, that Will Ospreay will not be no different. Then he ends up saying that he doesn't have to kill himself. He doesn't have to hurt himself constantly in order to have the fans interested, that he can just go out there and talk to have the fans interested. Then he ends up saying that Will Ospreay is just a flash in the pan, that soon he'll be forgotten, and that he is just there for their enjoyment, that he is just their toy that they're just playing with for a while until they move on to the next big thing. Basically calling wrestling fans fickle, which is very true. Now, I don't think Will Ospreay is going to get turned on by fans, but it's not, it wouldn't shock me if fans turned on Will Ospreay with how fickle wrestling fans can be. But he ends up saying that basically once they get tired of you, once they get used to how you act with your promos and your wrestling style, they're just going to move on to the next big thing. Then he ends up saying that next week he wants a match against Will Ospreay for his AEW International Championship. Will Ospreay, of course, agrees. So next week we're going to get MJF versus Will Ospreay for the International Championship. That match should be great. Very curious to see how that plays out, because I assume that if they were to do that, they would do that at Wembley. If that's how I thought they would do. Now, they could still do that. They may end up doing some shenanigans. I don't know if MJF wins. I don't see a reason why he should win personally, but they could do some shenanigans where I don't know, I forgot his name, but where Dan Garcia's friend comes out, costs MJF the match, would have Will Ospreay pick up the victory. They could do that, or they could do something where MJF could cheat to pick up the victory. Who knows? But there's gonna be definitely some shenanigans in that match. That match should be a banger though. Next, we get the semifinals of the Owen Hart Cup tournament. Is Bryan Danielson versus Heyman Page. The winner of this match ends up this is the finals. My mistake. I don't know why I said semifinal. The finals of the Owen Hart Cup tournament. The winner of this match ends up going to face Swerve Strickland at All In for the AEW World Championship. This was a really solid match. Started off red hot with Bryan Danielson ended up bleeding after commercial break. He was bleeding like crazy in this match. It was a very sick spot where Adam Page ended up doing like a moonsault, but he ends up landing on his feet, catching Bryan Danson, and then ends up doing a power driver right after. That was very sick. Then soon after, he ends up doing another power driver on the outside. Bryan Danson can't get up. He's bleeding everywhere, but they're counting to 10, but he eventually ends up making a 10 count. Then there was a spot where they end up going back and forth. Bryan Danson goes for a German suplex. Hangman lands on his feet. Then Hangman goes for a German suplex. Then Bryan Danson lands on his feet. Adam Page ends up going for a clothesline, but Adam Page goes for a clothesline if I'm not mistaken. Bryan Danson ends up weaving it. He tries to go for the psycho knee, but Hangman ends up avoiding it, and then he ends up hitting the psycho knee onto the referee. So the referee's out. He's outside the ring. He's laid on the ground. Then quickly, Adam Page ends up hitting a lariat. Then he ends up pulling off his belt and start whipping Bryan Danson with his belt. He starts choking him out. During this match, Jeff Jarrett was out there during the match. Him and Adam Page have their history. They have their beef. He comes to the ring. He wants Adam Page to stop. He wants him to stop. Adam Page, of course, is not trying to listen. He ends up pushing Jeff Jarrett to the ground. Then Jeff Jarrett gets up. He gets in his face, and then he ends up pulling off taking off his shirt. And underneath his shirt, he has a referee shirt on. So now Jeff Jarrett ends up becoming the new referee of the match. Hangman ends up putting Bryan Danson in a crossface. And Bryan Danson is about to pass out, almost passes out, but Jeff Jarrett raises his hand, but Bryan Danson ends up stopping his hand at the last second before it hits the mat. Bryan Danson ends up reversing the crossface submission into a roll-up pin and picks up the victory. So it'll be Bryan Danson versus Swerve Strickland at All In. Very interested to see why they didn't go with Adam Page. I thought Adam Page was going to win. I thought Adam Page was going to pick up the victory. I was very shocked that Bryan Danson won, but I'm kind of happy that Hangman didn't win, because I ain't gonna lie. If Hangman was at All In facing Swerve, I don't know if Swerve will win that match, especially what will end up happening later in the show. I don't know how that would plays out, but I'm excited for Bryan Danson and Swerve Strickland. That should be a banger of the match. We know Swerve Strickland will win that match, but that match should be an absolute banger. I cannot wait. Next, we end up getting Swerve Strickland. He cuts a promo. He basically talks about how he's the best in the world since he beat Will Ospreay, how he's still AEW champion, mentions Bryan Danson, mentions his match at All In. Then he started mentioning the EVPs, and ends up announcing that he will be in Blood and Guts, but he will be on Team AEW as we all expected. So he will be on Team AEW with Mark Briscoe versus the Elite at All In, at Blood and Guts. So we'll see how that plays out. But during this promo, he ends up talking about dynasties. Mentions how the three people of that dynasty is him, Will Ospreay, and Okada, and he ends up challenging Okada. So it's going to be him and Okada, I'm assuming, next week on Dynamite, so I'm very interested to see how that plays out. Now we get Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe versus Chris Jericho in a street fight. Going to get mainly towards the end, because that's the main important parts of this match. You know, they have some moments. They end up fighting through the crowd. They end up going all the way to the backstage area. Then we get to a moment where Joe puts Chris Jericho in his signature submission lock. But while he's in the submission lock, Big Bill comes out of nowhere from a room, ends up attacking Samoa Joe with a chair. Then this basically becomes a 3-on-1 handicap match, because Hook and Shibata got attacked last week by the Learning Tree. So they're not on tonight's show at Dynamite. So it's just the Learning Tree versus Samoa Joe basically in this match. This is a street fight, no disqualification. They're all jumping him. All three of them are jumping Samoa Joe. Then there's a forklift. And there's like a thing, I don't know what it is, but there's basically like some like wood padding that's like on like the forklift thing, you know, like the lever or whatever. They put Samoa Joe on the forklift. Chris Jericho gets in it and rams the forklift into a wall. And that was a crazy. He rams it into the wall. They go through the wall. They go to like another equipment area. I don't know what it is, but he basically rams the forklift into the wall while Samoa Joe is laying on it. That was a wild spot. I love what they did there. The match ended with Samoa Joe being knocked out, couldn't be able to compete anymore. Chris Jericho picks up the victory. That was very wild. I love what they did there. Very interested to see how Hook, Shibata will end up making their comeback to getting their revenge, of course. Very interested to see how this plays out. But this was really good. This was really good. I love what they did here. Next, we get Pac versus Claudio versus Kyle Fletcher versus Ishii, if I'm not mistaken. This match is a fatal four-way for the number one contender for the international championship. Whoever wins this match will be the one that will face either Will Ospreay or MJF after their match on Dynamite. Pac ends up picking up the victory here. Not gonna speak too much on this match. I wasn't really paying attention to this match. This match was decent, but I really didn't care of the participants. The only person I cared about was Pac, so that's all I really care about. But Pac picks up the victory. He will face either MJF or Will Ospreay. Most likely, we know he's going to lose, but he will put on a banger of a match. Now next, get a quick segment. Hangman goes up to the EVP's locker room. It's Okada that answers the door. He tries to go in, but Okada's denying him. But then the EVPs, the Young Bucks, ends up coming out, and they ask him what he wants, and Heyman ends up saying that he will do it. And he officially joins Team AEW for Blood and Guts against Swerve Strickland and Mark Briscoe. We still don't know who the other two members of the other three members actually. No, the other two members, yeah. Because I don't think Jack Perry will be in Blood and Guts. Actually Jack Perry will be in the match because it's a 5v5 match. So they still need three more members. So we still got to figure that out. Which I'm assuming, I think we know who the three more members are going to be. For the most part, especially later on in the show. Most likely it's going to be the Acclaim, and then probably it's going to be Darby Allin in that match with Swerve Strickland. Next, get a quick promo. Mercedes comes out doing her celebration for winning the New Japan Strong Women's Championship and the TBS Championship. Very soon, during her promo, thank God, Britt Baker comes out. Mercedes ends up running away, of course, and ends up leaving the ring, and that's really it. She had security guards out there, but Britt Baker ends up attacking the security guards, taking them out with ease, of course. Thank God this segment did not last long, because, man, I cannot stand Mercedes Moné. Like, she's a great in-ring performer, but character-wise, oh my God, it's just so hard just watching her from a character point of view. But in-ring wise, she's amazing, but character-wise, man, I just can't do it. Next, Darby Allin, he ends up attacking, I think his name is Bryan or Brandon, I can't remember, but he ends up attacking, he's an EVP, I think. He ends up attacking Bryan or Brandon, and he ends up going to the camera, ends up saying that he basically wants payback on the Elite and that he's coming for them. So most likely he will probably be in a blood and guts match. It only makes sense. A match like, you need a match with Darby Allin in it, like in a 5v5 type environment where there's no disqualification. He's going to do some wild spots most likely. So it only makes sense for Darby Allin to be in that match. Now next, get the main event. Mariah May versus Willow Nightingale. The finals of the Owen Hart Cup tournament. Winner gets to face against TONI Storm for the Women's World Championship at All In. This was a solid match. Very solid match. Towards the end of the match, Stokely is wearing a black hoodie, distracting Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale is trying to take off the hoodie to see who it is, but then Chris Statlander ends up hitting a high knee to take out Willow Nightingale. Mariah May ends up hitting a high knee right back to Willow Nightingale, goes for the pin, but Willow Nightingale kicks out. Then Willow Nightingale ends up making a comeback. She ends up hitting a lariat, goes for the Death Valley, but Mariah May ends up reversing the Death Valley into a pin and picks up the victory. So Mariah May will be the one to face TONI Storm at All In. But then they're celebrating. TONI Storm is happy. She's proud. She's proud of Mariah May. They're going up the inches ramp. They're going up to the Owen Hart Cup. They're going to, the little championship belt. Mariah May picks up the championship belt and hits TONI Storm with it, officially turning heel. This was great. This is exactly what we need. TONI Storm start bleeding immediately. She ends up attacking Luther, who try to figure out what's going on. She attacks Luther. She ends up kicking him in the nuts. She even threw him off a table. She even threw him off onto a table. Then after she did that, she ended up picking up TONI Storm's shoe. TONI Storm is crying. She's bleeding. She ends up going, picks her up a bit, have TONI Storm on her knees, and ends up smashing the shoe on her head, making her bleed even more, constantly hitting her with the shoe. Then she ended up kissing TONI Storm and then rubbing the blood that's on TONI Storm's face onto her. This was great. This was amazing. This was executed perfectly. This was perfect. We've all been waiting for the moment when Mariah May was going to turn on TONI Storm. This is great. This was perfect. The heel heat that she got in this segment was amazing. This was executed perfect. The last few shows, the last 2 to 3 shows of Dynamite have been great. They've been great. They've been cooking. I love what they've been doing here. We just had the MJF heel turn. Now we got Mariah May. This is great. Their All In feud is going to be amazing, man. This is going to be great. Very interested to see how All In plays out, because I can see either way. I can see TONI Storm winning, but I can also see Mariah May winning. But that should be amazing of a match. But you guys gotta let me know what your guys' opinion and thoughts been on. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode of Dynamite. Leave your opinions down below. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. But yeah, that's it.